What's up guys, Jerome here from the Bonsai Supply, and today I'm going to show you how to propagate jades from cuttings. Alright, so this tree, as you can see, is a hot mess. It has really overgrown branches everywhere, and some of the branches have cracked, like this one and this one here, which makes it a good candidate to use these as cuttings, because this I can never heal back. So all you need is a pair of scissors, and make sure that they are sharp, and then we can just cut these branches off like this. And now from here we can turn this tree, one tree, into a billion trees, because we can take all of these branches here and we could plant all of these branches and they will become their very own individual trees. So I'm going to focus on keeping the thicker pieces like this, and so you could actually plant all of these cuttings if you wanted to. Now I'm going to focus on the larger cuttings. So the first thing that you want to do is remove all the cuttings that you want to propagate. So here you go. So if you have never worked with the jade before, jades are originally from South Africa. They are also known as, well, the scientific name is Portulacaria Afra, but in the United States we call them Dwarf Jades. And these are actually really cool trees because you don't have to water them every day, so they're kind of like a succulent. They're very drought tolerant. So if you travel a lot, this is a great tree for you, and you can also keep this indoors as long as you keep it by a window. Jades are cool because if you water them, they'll grow, and if you stop watering, they will stop to grow. So it's fairly easy. They do flower also. They have a little purple flower, like a pinkish purplish flower, that grows up towards the sky. So it's almost like a little trellis that goes up. But you do need to have a drier climate in order for them to flower. In Florida, it is too humid, so they don't really like to flower in Florida. Alright, so now I have a few cuttings over here, which I'm going to pot into their individual pots, and then they will become their very own bonsai trees down the road, of course. Now, the really important thing is that you want to let these cuttings now sit in the shade for a couple of days until they have all calloused over. So right now we have a very flush open wound, and now we want to wait until this has calloused over, so dried up, in other words, on the bottom as well on the top. So I'm just going to leave these in the shades for a couple of days and then get back to these guys later. All right, so now we have this trunk left over, and since this is a really thick base, I want to see if I have a nice root spread down here, and then I want to repot this tree into a pre-bonsai container, just as this one, but I'm going to shorten the pot a little bit, and I'm going to turn this into a show hen. So I'm going to try to find the roots of this and just try to see how much further down this trunk goes, and maybe it even widens down a little bit more. I like to use a rake and just go from the base outwards like this, and just try to break up the roots very gently. So I want to make sure that I remove all of this black soil, or mostly of it. Okay, so this is very nice down here. So I have a really nice root spread that I'm starting to detect. So once I see the root spread down here, I like to switch to a chopstick, just because it doesn't damage the roots as the rake would, because this is metal, but this is wood. So I'm not going to actually damage the roots down here. So I can just go ahead. Alright, so the reason why I go ahead and repot this one today and I let the cuttings dry out a few more days is because this tree has roots, so I can totally pot this one and it will start to come back a lot sooner than these will. But these I have to dry out in order so that they don't start to rot from the base. I'm going to leave a little bit of the old black soil, the potting soil in here, and I'm going to fill the outside. I'm going to surround it with really good free draining bonsai soil. And the reason why I do that is because as this root system starts to grow and I start to water, all the black potting soil will wash itself out. And in a year or 2 years from now, when I repot this tree again, I can remove the remainder of the black soil when I'm at that point. But today, I always like to keep a little bit of the old black soil just for safety of the health of the tree, because this tree was grown in this soil. So even though it's not optimal, this tree is really used to this type of potting soil right now. But I'm going to introduce it to the good stuff, and then in a year or so I can then remove the rest of the black soil. I do really like the root system a lot. I'm surprised that it has such a nice root system already, and that's why I'm going to pot it in such a shallow pot. Now this is just a nursery pot that I'm repurposing for training purpose of this tree. I do not want to go ahead and pot this tree into its final pot because it has a lot of growing and I have a lot of root fixing to do. So I'm just going to put it into a little pre-bonsai container and fill it in with some good soil. Now before I pot it, I have to go ahead and fix this section right here. As you can see, it starts thick at the bottom and then it goes thin and then it gets thick again. And this is called reversed taper, which you really don't want in a bonsai because it looks really bad. And this reverse taper happened because all the branches came out from up here. And as you can see, I used to have handlebars, meaning branches coming out on the same height of the tree from the opposite of the trunk, which started to thicken this up really badly, and you don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this back, and I'm just going to use my scissors again. Because working on a jade, you really don't need much more than scissors because they cut through everything. Alright, so this is perfect. So I'm going to go ahead now and pot this tree. So I'm going to keep this tree now outside in a covered area so no rain gets to it, but it's still a lot of heat from the outside and still a lot of light so it can come back naturally. Once I see it starting to grow, that's when I go ahead and start to water once a week. With this type of soil, you really don't have to water more than once a week unless it is in the middle of the summer and the tree is really actively growing. That's when I go ahead and water like every 3 to 4 days, and I kind of play it by ear depending on how hot it is and in how much direct sun this tree actually is going to be. Alright, so it's been a few days and these cuttings are bone dry, and as you can see on the bottom here, it has completely dried over as on all of the open cuts. And so drying out really just ensures the survival rate that when you go ahead and pot them. And so now I'm going to take these nursery pre-bonsai pots and I'm just going to fill them with our all-purpose bonsai soil mixture. And I use our all-purpose bonsai soil mixture instead of potting soil just because this soil I know will produce a much healthier, happier, and faster growing tree. So therefore, I don't even mess around with potting soil anymore. I go straight into bonsai soil. And so I just fill the pots all the way to the top, like this. And then I just take these cuttings and just push them into the center. Here you go. And I push them about 1/2 inch to 1 inch down into the soil. And so now I'm actually gonna wait some more before I start to water. So first, we let the cuttings dry out just to ensure that they are completely dried out. And now I potted them into some dry bonsai soil. And I'm gonna keep them again in the shade outdoors, but I'm exposing them to heat, just no rain or water, or no direct sunlight just yet. And then I'm gonna wait a little more, and very soon, all of these little cuttings will start to push new growth. So this is not like a regular cutting where you have to water immediately. On jades and desert roses, you want to wait until they start to grow on their own. So I'm going to move these guys outside, not worry about it. Once they start to grow, I'm going to start to water them once a week. And once they start to really push and really all the growth really starts to push, that's when I'm going to water more, probably like every 3 days or so. And that's also the time when I'm going to start to fertilize for the very first time. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video about how to propagate a jade. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below in the comment section, and I will catch you guys next time.